Alrighty, we'll call the meeting to order. Nina, please take the roll.
Councilman Bundy?
Present.
Councilman Brennan?
Present.
Councilman McCain?
Present.
Councilman Stokes?
Present.
Mayor Sykes?
Present. Let the record reflect that we do have a quorum for the May 24th, 2020 City Council meeting. We're going to halt everything really quick, and a few councilmen wanted to say some words, so I'm going to let Councilman Brennan start it.
Thank you. I missed the vast majority of your ceremony. I was on duty and I got an emergency call, but I really wanted to be here. I got it here at the very end, but I just wanted to say that you've been an incredible asset to the city, and I don't know that I've ever met anybody more organized than you, and you help us stay on our toes, making the right decisions every day, and you're going to be dearly missed by me, and I bet you everybody else in this room that knows you, so I hate to lose you, but enjoy your retirement with your family. And since I missed it,
Distraction.
I got you some flowers for your retirement. Thank you.
I know you won't miss my facial expression.
Alrighty. Any other councilmen?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Bundy?
I'm sure all four of us are going to tell Nina thanks, but I just, we're going to miss her, but I bet the rest of her family's going to enjoy seeing her more. So I think that, and I just want to kind of mention a couple of things that you've done, and you keep us on track. When we come up with our harebrained ideas, you tell if it's a good idea, if it's a bad idea, if somebody's tried it in the past, and if it was tried in the past, what we might do to tweak it. So it's going to be great. And today before the meeting, I sat down with Nina and Tiffany, and we trained Tiffany in what I do pre-meeting most weeks. So I think we're going to be okay. You've trained a good one, but the big thing is that you will be missed, and your community in this service, while it's going to continue to go, has been well appreciated by many people. So thank you.
She would shoot me. Mayor. Councilman McCain.
I will dearly miss Nina. The only thing I won't miss is her rolling her eyes and threatening to smack me when I do this, not consciously knowing it because they can't understand what's being said when I'm to her.
I trained Tiffany to do the same.
to threaten me to wrap my knuckles. No. Should I tell people now? Oh.
Well, I just told him that maybe now's the time.
Mayor, Nina, I think you'll miss me because I was always eating and drinking chocolate milk or strawberry milk. Enjoy your family, relax. Okay. Congratulations.
Everything that I've said has already been spoken. We've already had our tissue moment, so I'm not going to say anything. And we're going to go right into item number 2, swearing in of the new city clerk, Tiffany Belt.
Where do you want me to stand?
Over here in front of the
She was like putting me in the right spot.
right there.
Next to the flag, not in front of it.
So I'm on the camera.
There we go.
Okay, all right.
They want to see your face. They don't want to see me.
But all the other pictures is your back. Can you turn this way? Come on, it's all the thing.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, repeat after me. I, Tiffany Belt,
I, Tiffany Belt,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear and affirm
that I will support the Constitution
I will support the Constitution
and laws of the United States
and the laws of the United States
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
and laws of the state of Idaho,
of the state of Idaho
and laws
of the state of Idaho.
that I will faithfully discharge
I will faithfully discharge
all the duties of city clerk
all the duties of city clerk
for the city of Mountain Home, Idaho,
for the city of Mountain Home, Idaho,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
I usually shake hands, but I'm going to hug you.
Do I stay with the flag?
Yeah, so on behalf of the city, this is to certify that Tiffany Bell is duly appointed to the office of city clerk for the city of Mountain Home for an indefinite term until removed or resigned. So I guess don't make them upset, I guess. But on behalf of the city, this is the last one that Miss Nina Patterson has signed. Hopefully this is the last one I ever have to sign. Congratulations.
Thank you.
it's your time to.
It's my time.
Time to come sit in a chair.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity. And Nina, thanks for all your mentorship. So let's let the meeting go.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Alrighty, really
Just here for you?
Yeah. Make them leave so we don't pop those things.
Oh, everybody's running now.
Abram, they're leaving you.
really quick before we get into item number 3, I'd like to add Mike Luan to the agenda for just a kind of an update of where the fiber optics broadband project is going, and then I'd also like to take off discussion decision to allow city to move forward with the DSIP fiber project. We'll have we're waiting on some clarification and information from the DSIP coordinator as well. So just wanted to let you guys know that. So with that, we're gonna let Mike go first, and then after that we'll do the recognizing the people in the audience really quick. So go ahead, Mike.
Slides come up here. All right. Good evening, council members and guests for the meeting. My name is Mike Lujan. I'm the fiber optic administrative assistant for the city of Mountain Home. And tonight's purpose of this presentation is to give you a better understanding of what the city's plans are moving forward with our fiber optic infrastructure. So, things that I'm going to talk to you tonight about are some of the milestones that we've hit with our fiber optic infrastructure build, and our plans moving forward with trying to get our fiber optics into the residential neighborhoods utilizing the local improvement districts. And then I will cover our proposed local improvement district number 1 boundary areas. And all of these topics that I will be talking to you all tonight about are also on the memorandum for council members, so you can refer back to that if you have any questions, and my email is on there as well. I'd like to start out with a quote. If you look at history, innovation doesn't come just from giving people incentives. It comes from creating environments where their ideas can connect. And I chose this quote because that's kind of like what we are trying to do with the city's infrastructure, is provide that environment and that infrastructure to allow people to connect to the 21st century. So let's go ahead and jump on into it. Where is the city at with our fiber optic infrastructure? It all started out with an idea to provide better services. And the reason that that idea came up is from listening to the concerns of the Mountain Home citizens about the current status of the internet services that are currently available. So moving forward, we are charging forward, and we already have 9.5 miles of conduit ran, and out of that 9.5 miles of conduit, we have 8.5 miles of active fiber optic cable that is currently running. And if you take a look at the map on the right here, which is also in your pamphlet if you want to refer back to that, the orange lines are just conduit that have been laid and is awaiting fiber optic cabling to be blown through it, and the green is the cabling that we currently have actively working.
I was going to say east side, or I guess the west side, has fiber optics cable going to the animal shelter and to Parks and Rec currently. I don't see it on there.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you got. I'll make sure to get that
Updated.
updated there. So moving forward, so those lines that you saw there, the fiber optic lines and cables, that is our main trunk lines that are kind of like the backbone for our network. And then we built the fiber huts, which all of that connect into. And we currently have the majority of our city buildings connected to the fiber optic infrastructure and are utilizing high-speed internet services. So in addition to that, we also established free Wi-Fi at 3 of our parks, Richard Aguirre Legacy Park and Stone Tree Park. And this was to kind of help out with the recent pandemic that we all know a lot about. It hit us pretty hard when everyone had to go home and work from home or go to school from home. So we quickly found out that our infrastructure that we currently are running off of was not powerful enough to meet today's needs. So that was one of the things we did to help out in the meantime until we got or get the entire infrastructure constructed. And if you haven't checked it out, we still have this up and running. You can check out the free Wi-Fi at these different parks. All right, and talking about the city buildings that we have connected, we are still trying to get a few more areas connected. We're working towards the sewer lagoons and the well houses. And on the right side of the screen, just to give an example of our fiber optic infrastructure, this is a speed test that I ran from my work computer, and it says 685 megabits per second download speed, and then the upload speed is 300 megabits per second. So to kind of correlate that to what we currently have at my house, running just the commercial services on the current infrastructure that is provided through commercial entities, I get around 12 megabits per second download and 1 megabit per second upload speed, if I'm lucky. And talking to a lot of people in public and getting emails, I've heard that it's even worse in some other areas. So that just kind of shows you the capability of what the fiber optic infrastructure is capable of. And moving forward, we plan on extending our infrastructure to our local communities and residential areas by utilizing local improvement districts. And we have been doing research to figure out which areas we want to start with. And we utilized surveys that were sent out to the public, and they could go online and basically fill them out and say, yes, I'm interested in getting fiber. And then they pop up on a heat map. So that's where we developed the boundaries for the first local improvement district. And we are currently working on plans to move forward to be able to hopefully soon present to the council for approval. There are some things that we need to do before we meet again to submit this for approval. We need to bring our opt-in rate up to 50%. So some steps that we are taking to do that, we just need to get the information out there about the infrastructure. So we are planning on tentatively doing a open house on June 9th in person, and then a virtual one via Zoom on June 10th for anyone who may not be able to make it to that in-person one. During this meeting, we intend to inform all of the residents within that local improvement district on what the process are going to be. You know, what do they need to do as a homeowner to opt in, and what it may cost to be part of the infrastructure. And hopefully we'll be able to gain some fiber champions. If you haven't heard what a fiber champion is before, a fiber champion is basically one of the residents within, or numerous residents within the local improvement district that are supportive of the infrastructure that we are building. And we're going to utilize them to get out and talk to their neighbors and be advocates for the fiber optic infrastructure to help people get information about it, and hopefully get more people to opt in and bring that rate up to 50%. So as soon as we get that rate up to 50%, we are going to reconvene, and then at that point we will present to you the full specifics of what we plan on doing with that first LID. And to go over the first LID, it covers 1,143 homes, and the blue areas signify the homes that will actually be covered in that LID. And if you, it's probably kind of hard to see the numbers there, but you do have this map in your handout as well. Those numbers indicate the surveys that came back. So those are the numbers we utilized to select the appropriate zoning for this so that we can have the highest take rate on our first local improvement district. And to just kind of wrap everything up and go over, I talked with you all about what our plans are moving forward and how we plan on getting that first LID up for approval, and basically all the steps that we plan on taking to get there. So at this time, I'd like to open it up for any questions you all may have about the processes and plans we have moving forward.
Councilman Brennan.
Thanks. This is a great presentation. I appreciate the information.
You're welcome.
The map for LID number 1, I'm curious. I've never honestly dealt with this before, but you've got that one outlier there, East 10th. That bottom blue section.
Yes.
Does that have any negative effect on the cost for the first LID by splitting it away from the rest of the?
It does not. So the reason we did that is because that had such a high take rate area, and it's actually more cost beneficial to go to the areas that have a higher take rate, because then instead of running all the lines to a neighborhood that only has like 5 homes that want to get connected, we have a larger amount. So it's going to be more cost effective to go to areas where the numbers are higher to start.
We have a main trunk line that goes by there as well, and in the close proximity to the fiber hut was another reason.
Mayor?
Councilman?
What's your anticipated timeline?
So our anticipated timeline, we are hoping to get the LID approved within the next 3 months or so, and then a completion time frame, we're looking from the time it's approved, roughly from the time we start construction, about 12 to 18 months. So that's the rough estimates that we have to go with right now.
For the first LID.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we are continually planning and looking at our surveys right now to plan out the remaining local improvement districts, because we know as a city that question is going to come up from homeowners. Well, when is my neighborhood going to be next? So we want to be able to provide that timeline, and those other districts should hopefully be out within the next few months before we get this first LID approved.
Did you say 12 to 18 months before construction, after the courts grant the LID?
Once we start construction, it should be roughly about a year time frame, maybe a couple months over. So
For
To get the fiber
get-
into the
into
to
the
get
home?
all the fiber optic
All
hooked up and connected.
1143 homes if
Yeah.
we had a perfect 100% take rate.
Okay, from the approval of the LID, 18 months to full connectivity. Is that what you're saying?
So roughly. Yeah.
Worst case, yeah.
Oh,
Because we'd be using a third party boring company, because we don't have the staff to do it.
And part of the reasoning for that kind of gap with the different timelines is there's some factors that are involved in that. So the first factor is because there are some financing, some construction loans that we are going to have to take versus contractors that we have to take. So if we have one contractor that says, hey, yeah, I can do it in the 12 months, but it's going to be $25,000 more, but if you give me 18 months, it's going to be $25,000 cheaper. We're going to have to kind of do a cost benefit analysis. Is the interest going to be lower than that extra cost to get it done in 12 months? So, and that's kind of where those numbers are.
Mayor? Councilman?
Thank you, Michael. I was curious. I have 2 questions. One, when will the city be fully hooked up? And that's going out to the sewer lagoons and everywhere.
So they're currently running their lines right now.
Mhm.
We are currently running into some bedrock and
Yeah.
future, so it's causing some issues, but we're hoping we see like next few months, hopefully.
Okay. And have you been able to reach out to local banks or credit unions for these loans for the homeowners if they want to opt in? I'd rather see a local bank or a credit union loan our people the money
we have to
for
get
it.
the LID approved before we can source any funding, but
Yep.
that is definitely the goal, to try to use local sources.
Cool.
And at the same time as well, we want to be able to provide the lowest interest rate to the citizens of Mountain Home.
Cool. Thank you.
Michael wasn't here. We did a presentation to Pioneer Federal Credit Union, and
remember
they
that.
were very interested in
Yeah.
doing that funding source.
So keep reaching out.
Okay,
Okay.
definitely.
Alrighty, council, anything else?
Thank you.
Okay. If you
Thanks,
have any
Michael.
questions, feel free to email me. Appreciate y'all's time.
Thank you. Alrighty, we're gonna jump into item number 3, recognizing persons in the audience with a limit of 3 minutes, maximum of 3 minutes. Would anybody like to get up and speak? Come on down. Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
State your name, all the good stuff.
My name's Beth DeVore, and I'm going to read this to you. I'm a senior citizen, and I'm in the process of selling my home, and I want to downsize. Actually, I would love to build a small house on my children's property in town, which currently has one home on it. We can't build an accessory dwelling. It's granny home, mother-in-law home, accessory dwelling on their property, even though they almost have a half acre. That would be my preference, but I understand it's against city code and we cannot put in for a variance. So I'm here to kind of ask the procedure of putting in to have the city change that code so that mother-in-law dwellings are allowed. This particular property I want to build on has 6 lots, and each lot is 3,201 square feet. That means 2 lots would equal 6,402 square feet, which is 98 square feet short of what I would need to actually just have them deed that 2 lots to me and build my house on. From what I understand, I can't put in for a variance for that either, for the 98 square feet that's needed. So I find that Mountain Home has very little housing to offer senior citizens. It would be wonderful if there were condos or small housing, and I personally know several recently retired people, that's in the last like 3 years, that have moved to Boise because we don't have anything here. We don't have a 55 and older. We don't have the small homes that I want to downsize. And I also have 3 friends who would like to downsize in the near future, and they agree with all of this. We were looking at duplexes or something that we could do together. So, but my main preference is trying to get this, I can't ever remember, accessory dwelling unit code, maybe changed the code for that. But I'm also looking for anything that would improve the senior citizen housing here. That's it.
Thanks, Beth.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else like to get up? Come on down.
Hi,
Hello.
my name's Tess Beagle. I recently moved here because of our family, and we're kind of in the same situation as Beth. I've been working with Brock. We are going to be building some senior not condominiums, but duplexes and things here on some lots that we've bought that are city lots. And we would like to be able to start the conversation with planning and the city to get the ordinance changed for the granny units, or if you want to call them tiny homes or whatever you'd like to call them. I've reached out to 4 or 5 different people in the community, and they were supposed to be here, and Beth seems to be the only one here. So I'm assuming people didn't get off, or they didn't realize that it was today. But we are looking into that also. My husband and I are looking at building some military rentals. We are also looking at buying some other properties that are in the city to do senior housing. I have talked with Brock a little bit about going ahead, putting a plan together, doing things like that, but we wanted to also get in on the granny unit thing or tiny home thing also, so that we can support the seniors, the local communities. I've looked at a lot of the statistics that are coming, everything, and I will put a presentation together to do this, to meet with planning or whomever you guys say that we need to do. But at this point, we've seen the need for the seniors, the military families, and we've also seen a lot of the properties could be upgraded in Mountain Home. And I see that there is some planning stuff going on in like the mobile park at the end of town and things like that. And so we just wanted to be included with these, with the granny units, and maybe a tiny home community for seniors, or for the base and everything for their people that come in and out so much. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tess. Would anybody else like to get up and speak? Come on down, sir.
Councilman, Mr. Mayor. So I'd like to speak on.
What's your state your name? Sorry.
I'm sorry. My name is Alan Carroll.
Hey, Alan.
Lifetime Idaho resident, just retired from the military, moved back. So I have a big concern, and I'd like to present it, and I'm so glad that these ladies spoke because it's so in line with it. I've owned rental properties here in town for 5, 6, 7 years, and 3 years ago I would rent out about 1,900 square feet, 3 bedrooms, 1 car garage for $850 a month. Right now that'll get you a mobile home in Mountain Home. I drove through the Meadows Mobile Home Park today, and I noticed really nice vehicles parked in there. And it's interesting for me to see really nice vehicles parked in mobile home parks, but vehicles are so much cheaper than housing are in Mountain Home right now. And so it's such a deeper issue. And as a real estate investor, seeing that, I think we're headed towards a huge crisis. And I think that we need to see things like this, smaller homes, variances, whatever the city can do to incorporate stuff like this. I know that, and I'm sorry, this is the first time I've been to one of these meetings, so order and sequence, but as it also pertains to the Meadows Mobile Home Park, as that's going in and they're trying to get in the city where they have the ability, the facilities, and they have the money to bring in more houses and more homes over there. I feel like that's just a huge issue for the city, seeing as we can bring stuff like that in. So I just wanted to state my piece and say that as a landlord, I'm very concerned. Right now, I can't even buy houses. Material costs are more than 4 times what they were. Lumber was $2.96 for a 2x4. Over at Jim's, I think they're $10.50 right now per 2x4. Electrical wire that used to be $67 a roll is now $229 a roll. So construction costs are astronomical. Getting new facilities and stuff is astronomical. So anything we can do to advance this and help bring that in before we have a major crisis here in town. And I'm sorry I don't have any solutions or anything, but I did want to say that. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Alan.
Thank you, Alan.
Would anybody else like to get up and speak? Alrighty, run down to item number 4, council comments. I just want to say something really quick. My wife and I, Kim, got to hand out a scholarship, the Lions Scholarship, and it's great to see all the kids that are awarded those scholarships. It's truly humbling to see how many dollars that was given out that night. So it was really cool. So thanks to all the administration, the teachers that got those kids to where they are, the parents that got those kids, or maybe it was a family member or what's the word I'm looking for? Grandparent. Whoever got the kids to where they were, it was neat to see that those kids apply for those scholarships and get granted them. So on behalf of Kim and I, we were super excited and thank the school districts for doing what they do. Go ahead. Anybody? Councilman, got anything? Councilman Brennan?
I got 2 quick things here. At the request of Tiffany, I wanted to ask the council if you guys think that there should be a bigger venue set for our public hearing, or if this will suffice here on the, what do you call it, Thunderbolt Lane public hearing.
I'd like to see a bigger venue.
I don't.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Bundy?
I assume that Mr. Schroeder might point out the fact that if we move to a different venue, we lose the ability to create a permanent record of the meeting through Facebook and then streaming. I think there's the possibility, I don't know if that's what we're talking about, but I think we need to take into consideration the idea of streaming the meeting. If we get a large group of people that come, we could stream it. I'm not opposed to a larger venue, but I do think that it creates other logistical errors or problems.
We mailed all the notices to the property owners within the,
Oh, already?
yeah, we mailed them this afternoon. I'm sorry.
You told me to ask the council. Okay.
Go ahead, Schroeder.
So I will say that the public hearing at P&Z had people out side, but we had greater distances where people had to stay kind of spread out, so that's kind of alleviated that. You may lose the streaming with the automatic cameras, but you still have the ability to maintain a transcribable permanent record as long as you have a recorder. As long as that's recorded, you're fine.
Well, and now we have more seating. This is all back to normal. We can still funnel them in if they want to come on in.
It was packed.
Was it?
I've not seen one like that, both times.
Right.
Councilman Brennan?
If this room will suffice, that's fine. What I don't want to see is that the people standing outside can't hear the comments of the people inside, and I don't think that's fair to them. Maybe some people will be like, I ditto what he said, and keep it short. But if not everybody can hear at the same time, then I don't know. I think it's maybe not the best process. It can. Never mind. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Any councilman got any other comments? And then we got till what, June 14th, right?
Just on the topic, note that being that it has been posted, we would have to post everything again.
That would cause delays.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's why we mailed everything to not delay.
So I just want you to be cognizant of that.
Okay.
Cram them in here.
Yeah, we'll cram them in, and we'll definitely make sure it's available live. Make sure it doesn't go down or whatever. We'll do our.
Maybe we can get some kind of sound system to outside.
Oh, there you
Pick
go.
up the mics or something.
Maybe a town crier.
Yeah. Think of something creative to get the people out on the sidewalk the ability to at least hear.
Okay. Thanks. And second, Mayor?
Go ahead.
I just wanted to give a shout out to our fire crew and our rescue crew for the explosion that happened out near the railroad tracks just outside of town. It was a huge effort of people coming together, and we don't see stuff like that every day. And I talked to one fireman who happens to be in the room, who said, kind of scary going into a situation, right? Your job is to go in and assess for damage and get people out, right? If people are stuck in there, and these guys rushed into I call it a burning building. There was a fire, but what incredible heroism to those guys that went in right away to check for life safety stuff. So congratulations, or not congrats, but good job to you guys and to the rescue crew and the ambulance crew that was all out there. Thank you.
All right, Councilman, anything else? Hearing none, we'll go down to item number 5, the consent agenda. Councilman?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Bundy?
Tiffany, I just want on number H, want to make sure I understood the lease. The BMX track, you did all the computations, and we have the scale there that we've come up with. The BMX track is looking to rent this, it's to sign the lease for $0 because they're not going to actually utilize the track for this first year. They're just going to go onto the track for the first year to rebuild the track and be able to apply for grants because they'll be in control of the track. And once this lease is over and they start to utilize the track, that's when they're going to be charged somewhere in the vicinity of $300 to $400 based on our formula, correct?
Yes.
So the 0 is because they're not going to actually rent it out. 0 is because they're going to use this year to get it back into working condition. Did I understand that correctly?
Correct. They're not going to host practices for any reasons.
Okay. Thank you.
Mayor?
Councilman Brennan?
And on item F, just I guess for the record, I had a question that wasn't in our packet about a warranty on this fuel truck we'll be buying, and I'm glad to see they are putting a very fair warranty on a used truck. So I'm glad to support that.
Councilman, any questions, comments, concerns, anything you want to pull, anything you want to discuss?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Stokes?
I have another question or two on age. Tiffany or Darcy, does it say within the lease that they will not hold practice?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Nine and I pointed that out to Councilman Brennan this afternoon. On page 2, Leasing during the lease period will maintain, repair, and bring the track up to rideable use. Leasing will not host practice or events during this lease period. Avoid operation and maintenance during the 4th week of June.
Okay. And then I was gonna tell the leasee that he should reach out to Justin and see if he can use or borrow that equipment for the motocross, so we're not using city equipment or funds.
Councilman, you have anything else for the consent agenda?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Bundy?
make a motion, we approve the consent agenda as printed.
Second.
It's been motion and second. I'll call for the question. Councilman Stokes?
Aye.
Councilman McCain?
Aye.
Councilman Brennan?
Aye.
Councilman Bundy?
Aye.
Run out of item number 6, old business. There was no old business. Item number 7, items removed from the consent agenda. There were none. We pulled the discussion decision. So the next item on the agenda is the discussion decision on Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation to approve the request by Cody Hunter Black for the annexation and zoning of C4. Of the Meadows Mobile Home Park located at 1075 Air Base Road, adjacent parcel with conditions. Action item. Councilman, what do you got?
So, Mr. Mayor, if you'd like, I'd be more than happy to just give a brief summary, if that's something.
Council, do you want a brief summary?
Mayor,
Councilman McCain?
I'd just like one question answered. It says prior to the approval of annexations being recorded, a signed annexation agreement approved by council will be completed by the city with applicants no less than 6 months. Is there any reason why that cannot be done prior to this discussion?
No, not necessarily. Staff has been working with the applicant, Mr. Cody Black, and we understand that he has certain funding mechanisms that he wishes to pursue that need firmer dates, or at least he's able to go back to those people or entities that will be funding him and say that there has been some sort of decision by city council. So that was our kind of crack at helping towards that. However, drafting that could certainly be done beforehand, before any sort of action is made by this body.
Well, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Well, I would like to definitely see that, and I'd like to see something from DEQ approving the method of remedying with the septic ponds. Because I understand that DEQ, I don't see any type of letter or anything from planning and zoning or anything that they got anything from DEQ stating that just covering the septic ponds over will, the sewer ponds will be sufficient.
Okay, speaking.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Okay, no, thank you.
Please.
So I do have a letter from our engineer, Joe, who's with DME Engineering, and he does address that specifically because I let him know that that's a big concern of the city, is just if the annexation occurs, is the back 20 acres and, you know, what's that process? And admittedly, last time, over a year ago that I came here, I didn't know the answer to that. So it was helpful to get his input, and I have a letter here that I can distribute to each of you today.
I think that's the same one that we have actually at Brock. Is that the same one that we got? Okay.
Is that this letter here that I got from today?
Yep, it's been distributed.
So I guess my recommendation, council, is if you're in favor, not in favor it, whatever we do, maybe we should sit down, talk about if you are in favor it, what do you want out of Cody to annex him in? Am I mixing my words?
No, Mayor.
Have a sit down.
Yeah, so I believe what you're trying to say, Mayor, is that this is a very complicated matter. There are multiple components that I don't understand that outlive probably my lifespan, more than likely, that need to be spoken to. I believe if we wanted to do the DA prior to any sort of action by this body, that doing some sort of workshop session with this body and with Cody, where we can kind of get down to where the sausage is made as much as we can do in a legal fashion per our legal counsel here, that would probably not hurt.
And so, Cody, really quick, what year are your water rights?
It's in the early 60s. I think it's 61.
64.
Or
I
maybe
want to say 64.
it could be 64.
They were, yeah. How many EDUs does that equate to?
It's around 64 for culinary, and then it's around 60 for the irrigation. And my understanding is the project would take 36 acre feet to annex in, which would leave a surplus to the city for 28 acre feet.
Year 1961,
61?
and there's 0.58 CFS.
5. And would you say 28 what? I'm sorry.
So 64 acre feet is what I understand that
Domestic.
translates to from a water engineer they spoke with.
Okay.
And then approximately 64. I actually have it in the package I sent.
69.79 acre feet.
Yeah, and I don't think that's really. Joe, the engineer, was telling me that at least with the city of Mountain Home, you guys don't really function with the irrigation water. It's just all culinary. So that may not be a benefit to you, and I wouldn't require the city as part of the agreement to take over that. If it's a benefit to you, great, that works.
So do you get west side irrigation rights then? Do you have shares in the irrigation district?
No, this is all groundwater.
Okay.
And we would use all of it for, because it would be for
take
both
all.
irrigation and
And some things I was just going to highlight real quick, because there are some significant differences from the time I came a year ago to the table. And at that time, I actually didn't even know that a decision was going to be made. It was more the formality that Rich had set up for me, which was kind, to introduce the new council members, to the situation. However, I don't disagree with the council members' decision at that time, because they brought up replacing the sewer and water lines there, and at that time I thought I might be able to do some type of membrane that would extend the life of what's there, and that would obviously save me a lot of money, and if that means staying in the county, I was fine with that. But I did investigating, and I did some camera videoing throughout the lines, and the gentleman that had done it for me said, hey, you need to replace your sewer and water lines. So with that being the case, that's why I've come back, to the table is, well, one, the DEQ has said that this is the best solution for the city and for the, the long-term nature of what happens here in Mountain Home. So it is their desire. I actually was able to get Aaron Sheff, who's the regional administrator with the DEQ, provided the letter that I sent to you in the city. And in here, he had said that it was his recommendation to protect the long-term welfare of the city and just the water and so forth, just because of the nature of an evaporative system and so forth. And it's right where our property is. It's located right where we're surrounding all city property, and it's not if development comes to us, it's there. And so with us, another item that Brock I think may not be aware of is just with the DEQ itself. I have to have a solution to present to them by the end of this month, and so I said, hey, well, let me, if I can, have one last shot to talk to the city council members. There are some significant items that I'm willing to do that are much different than the time before, and the time before was more just exploration, is what things could we do to make the project work, and to be honest, at the time I wasn't able to fund some major infrastructure improvement, and now I am. And so with that, what the big things that I'm coming to the table with, we had discussed, Rich and the city wanted to see water meters at every single unit. That's absolutely fine. I think that the city council members had a concern of me wanting to profit from the water. I do not care, and that's totally fine. We'll put water meters at each unit. And again, as Rich has said, could be a great benefit to the city, just the amount of acre feet that we can contribute that's in excess of what our project requires. So that would be a benefit to the city, and knowing that water is something that's needed for the city. And just kind of stating the things that are kind of the obvious items here that have been discussed time and time again, but just to recap, housing, we can bring that. Right now, the DEQ has limited us to 70 units, and that goes into Councilman McCain's concern about the current state of the property. The membrane, if there is a membrane that's there, that's how it was acquired, and I've been working with the DEQ since the day I bought it, trying to come up with a solution. But the DEQ said, well, and the contractors, everyone that I've talked to that are the professionals surrounding this line of work, said literally all you have to do is just bulldoze the berms down, and the filtration that naturally occurs within our earth cleans those systems. And they said by the nature and that's why cleaning and replacing the sewer lines was discussed before is really important, because there are cracks in those sewer lines and there are issues with it. So as soon as you take care of it, then the natural systems that already occur in the earth will clean out. And that's what Joe was mentioning here. I told him, I said, hey, in layman terms, I don't know if the council members are going to quite get that. He does have a follow-up email and text I'll send to the council members as well. But that's why the DEQ is saying yes, that would be a acceptable solution for them, is connecting to the city. And I mean, to be quite transparent, a lagoon system could be acceptable too. How many units that can afford, I don't know. You do have a 200-foot berm that has to be around it as part of the requirements, but from what I've been told, I think we can get pretty close to what's there with the units. But then that's going to be what's sitting there for Mountain Home for the next 60 plus years. And as the DEQ had mentioned, that's why they provided the letters. They're just saying there is some residual impact of retaining it as a an outdoor sewage system around the immediate neighborhood and area. And that's why they were saying if there's ever a property that's within 1,000 feet proximity to the city or more, they say that's what the solution should be in their opinion. And so it's in the, they feel it's in the city's best interest. And so that's why they had provided the letter. But, from my standpoint, it's obviously a nice benefit, because then I can develop back 20 acres. And, I've been working with Brock, and, my intention is the frontage property, just kind of not, I don't really care what it's used for, but I do understand the nature of cities and trying to create some tax revenue for the city, and keep some consistency within that airbase road corridor. And I just told Brock I'm fine zoning that. I want to be a win-win. I want to be a team player with the city. I have mobile homes and lines that are already there, but it's fine. We can remove those, convert it to a retail use. That's great. And the back 20 acres, whatever that's zoned for, that's beneficial for the city, I can partner up with people and bring in some more senior housing. I could do, whatever you guys want to see there, I could help accommodate in that fashion. And so that's why I told Brock, whatever flexibility you guys want, I want to show you I'm a team player. And as part of that, obviously economy always comes to play, and I'm no fool there. I wanted to show the city that I was committed to the city, and everything that we've purchased has been within the city for the park. And I actually bought a park up in Boise, a small little park. But anyway, I've been buying materials still from gyms and A to Z, and from the different groups that are here. I know that that tax revenue business comes to the city and is a benefit to the city. And I'm not like a huge player, but we've spent about $600,000, and that's just in materials. It's not labor. That has helped the city as well. And so my point being there is we just want to be a good neighbor. We want to be a team player.
Hey Cody, that back 20 that has the north cell, the southwest cell, and the southeast cell. When you go and cover that over, let's say the council says, yep, we're gonna bring in the sewer line. Are you still going through Barry Peterson's property?
No.
Because it said in this thing, it says it's too steep or too high, or
Says it needs a pump. It's going to go.
Yeah,
down.
lift station.
American Legion. All three ways needed that.
Yeah, this is something that was explained to me, is no matter which way I go, I'm going to have to have a
lift station.
A lift station, which the gentleman and the engineer, everyone just explained, it's actually a nice benefit for the city, because I'm the one that's responsible for it and have to pay to service it and the backup generator, etc. But with it, it provides even another additional safety net for the city, because anything that runs through there runs through this lift station. And again, they'll all be all new sewer and water lines. When I was here with the Planning and Zoning Commission, just earlier, like 3 weeks ago, I think the gentleman that was here didn't quite understand that, these conditions have to be met, and I have to do these as conditions to be, annexed into the city, meaning having the new infrastructure brought into the park and meeting those requirements, so that we do have a clean system and we're not bogging the city system with something that could potentially bring in bad material, and so forth, that would then be your problem. So, that is, I wouldn't have come here before the city if I didn't have a significant change of what I was presenting. The other item that was significant is I was trying to, as I brought lots in, that was what I made a request to the city. And the city at that time, at least, was very kind in saying, sure, we'll assist you with that. I wasn't in a position where I could pay for all those up front.
That was the 1.5 million. Sorry to cut you out. That was the 1.5 for all the hookup fees, or
Yeah.
something like 1.2. I can't remember what it was, but
Yes, exactly. And I now have the funding that I could get, as Brock was mentioning, and I can pay all those impact fees up front. Another thing that's just of interest, I'm not asking the city to make a concession, but an interesting item is the DEQ had required me to go in and measure the amount of water that was actually being used, because in regards to these other systems that we were evaluating, it was pertinent. And so we were using 250 gallons per lot, and it was something the city was talking to me and saying, essentially, we're not crediting it as like an RV, or even though it is an RV mobile home park. I don't care. I am happy to pay you more money. But my point is that we actually did the study for a full year, and we found out that our lots actually, between 70 mobile homes that are there, and there's about 17 that are 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and 1 bath, and then anyway, there's a range of different units, and we're actually right around about 170 gallons per day, which what the number is that's based off the city is 250 gallons per day. And so, that's another good thing that we're able to bring to the table, is we don't use as much water. And part of that is because, as I told the city when I came in before, we have utilized those efforts to bring in water conservation devices, which at that time when I came in, that was important to the city. And I heard that message, and so we went in and did that in every single unit that we own, and even ones we didn't. And so, anyway, like I said, I wouldn't come before you again if I had nothing new to present, but it is a significant difference on all of those fronts. I wouldn't want to contaminate the system that the city has currently, and I'd want it to be a win-win, which it does benefit me, because obviously I get the back 20 acres that I could then develop, and it sounds like it'd be a benefit to the city as well. You need housing. I'm happy to provide it. You tell me what you want, I'll build it.
so how do you build houses on those cells, those sewer cells?
So that's a great question. And I have to do a feasibility study on that, because the person that's impacted the most, because that's what I asked Joe Canning, the engineer. I said, okay, so what impact is there? Is there any, like remediation or anything that I have to do, like a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3? He said no. He said the system itself it solves itself just by turning off the faucet, because he's like, you don't have any toxins back there. It's not like you have an auto shop and you have oil spills and other things that are contaminants that won't go away without doing remediation. He just said you just turn off the tap, and it will naturally filtrate itself, like Mother Earth does. But again, if you talked to me a year ago from now, I wasn't informed. I didn't know all these things. I didn't know that I needed to know all these things. So I've been learning. But that's what we're at. So in answer to your question, I may have to bring in what they call compactable fill and structural fill, for those areas, and that's a cost that I have to evaluate to see overall if it makes sense. I do have partners. There's a group called Flagships Homes that's down in Utah County. I do commercial real estate as well, and they're one of my clients, and they're worth a couple $100 million, and they've done very well, and they do development. And they did say, there's some type of development play there. They're interested in partnering with us, if they see that there's a demand. And I said, my experience is there's a pretty high demand here. They need housing. They need assistant housing for the Air Force Base. We've had the Air Force Base at least reach out to us personally. And so I know that that's a need. So at least on the demand side, I haven't done the full analysis there, because I don't even know if it's worth the time and effort to do a feasibility study, and those cost lots of money too. And so willing to do it. Obviously, love to develop the ground if I can.
So what was the reason? Like, I think, and maybe the council can refresh my memory. I thought we were like, well, we'll let you hook up to the city services. You know what I mean? At the one point, whatever it was, but we don't want to annex you in. You know what I mean? Wasn't that something we had discussed at that one time, Rich? I mean,
it was a discussion we had. It's kind of a policy we try not to do. We want to not have houses.
We normally want everything in the city. We don't provide services outside the city.
Yeah. Okay. Just trying to figure out.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
Well, what I would like to definitely take this into full consideration, because I'm not real thrilled with annexing, even but not recording it until we know everything we're looking at. He does make some good points now, but as for this discussion here, I still would recommend to the council to not annex this at this time until after we can talk to and have a meeting, so we can get everything out, know exactly what you need to do before we even vote by this committee to have you annexed in.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Bundy?
I tend to agree with Mike, because right now, there's so many unknowns. And with this many unknowns, it makes it hard to vote any way but a certain way. But if we can answer these questions, because we also, when we look at these things, we have to project 15, 20, 25, 30 years out. And so I'm with Mike that I think that we need to have some questions. We need to figure out what we would want you to do for this plan to go forward. There's some things that you said that were intriguing. We could possibly get some additional area. You have some folks that you could work with in some developing. So there were some things that you said that have caused me to listen. But we need to sit down and figure out what we need to make this a good plan for 20 years from now. And it sounds like you're thinking ahead, and I know the mayor's thinking ahead, and I know Rich is thinking ahead, and all of us are trying to think ahead. Because we don't want to make our planning and zoning decisions based on the right now. We have to project 20, 30, 40 years into the future. So I'd like to get these questions answered too.
Mr. Schroeder, is that something we can sit down with Cody and say, hey, can we sit down and have a little work session together so he can give us the answers, sit down, and what makes this council feel comfortable without making a decision? You know, if you know what I mean? Like, this is what Cody can tell us what we'd like to see, or you know what the council would like Cody to give us answers on. Is that something that's amenable?
So what you have is you have a recommendation from P&Z to annex into zone C4. So the zoning portion of that has had a public hearing, and that all those steps have been met. The last remaining part is for you to complete, according to this recommendation, for you to complete a annexation agreement. So if you restrict your discussion to the terms of the annexation agreement, then I think you're fine. So you're going to hash out the details of what's going to be in the agreement. You've already, the P&Z Commission has recommended the zoning part of it. Annexation itself is legislative, so you can discuss that all day long, and the annexation itself is subject to this agreement. So that yes, you can.
So councilmen can say, yeah, we agree with the C4 designation, but the annexation we want to have a discussion on. Is that what you're?
Yep.
That's what I'm getting at.
Yep.
Go ahead, Councilman Brennan. Sorry.
Thanks. And just before it all ended, I wanted to put a few things out there to Cody. My thoughts are going to go from one end to the other here real quick, so I apologize on that. But as you were talking, I was writing down a few notes. You made mention that you have to give DEQ some kind of an answer within the next 30 days.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so that means you need an answer from this council within the next 30 days?
Well, I think in the context of what we're discussing, it's what, at least as I understand it, so meaning if I am to be annexed into the city, this is what Brock has explained to me from day one, that the agreement has to be mutual between both parties regardless. So meaning that what's agreed here tonight is that we have a path moving forward, and the agreement and those terms need to be aligned, and that there's time to discuss what that means, and assuring you and the council members, and of course the long-term solution that we come up with is in alignment with what everyone wants. And so it does afford you that time, and in turn, yes, if I go to the DEQ and say the city has decided that they're going to work with me on an agreement, if we can come to a mutual agreement that works for both parties.
So starting
okay.
starting a conversation is enough for that. Not because I can't speak for them, but I'd be willing to bet you're not going to get a signed contract from us in the next 30 days.
And that would be okay. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the DEQ, they're looking at, like you, 30, 60 years out. They're saying, and that's the spirit of the letter that they wrote, is they're saying this is what's best. They're saying it very clearly. This is what's best for the city and the citizens, at least regarding the water. Regarding everything else that you have to decide based on your positions, that's up to you. But they're saying based upon the water and the long-term solution there for the city, they said hands down this is the best solution.
Okay. And so you can't. Are you telling us that you can't develop the back 20 without it being annexed into the city?
That is correct. Because if it isn't annexed into the city, then they have to continue to have the lagoon system, and the lagoon system will cover the entire 20 acres.
And I'm not a professional, but I find it hard to believe that you just turn the faucet off on the sewage cells and you build right on top of them. It might take some time, but that seems strange.
Well, and that I would encourage you to talk to the professionals that
Sure.
are in that area, because like I said, when I came here before, I wouldn't even profess to know the answer. I'm just taking it based on what the professionals have said to me, and I'm guessing that's part of the due diligence that the city itself is going to undertake as well, and I welcome it. I don't want to do something that's going to be detrimental long term and be known as the guy that screwed up this, the water table for the city. So, that's not why I'm here.
Mayor, council.
So, go ahead, Rich.
On that, I would say that DEQ is not going to sign off on something unless it's been mitigated and cleaned up and the engineering has the plan what's going on. And again, I would suggest we don't annex that until that's it figured out what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Until there's a plan or until it's done?
Until there's a plan.
A committed plan, right?
Committed plan that has to happen, the DEQ signs off on, says, and this is what, this needs to be done.
Okay.
Yes.
So I guess what I'm hearing.
Can I keep going?
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
I have a few things. You said you're fine paying impact fees. Has Brock told you that we are in?
I apologize. But they are not impact fees, they are connection fees.
Thank you.
Okay.
This is wrong.
Okay. Cross that off. No impact fees for fire or
Police or streets.
okay.
Connection fees.
And the mayor basically already went there, but in my memory, I remember, and I could be wrong, but that the council told you, right, like, we don't want to inherit the DEQ problem, so fix that and then come back to us. And it doesn't sound like it's been fixed yet. There's some options on the table, but there hasn't been solid action taken on that yet.
And again, my understanding of it is, because I've asked the DEQ and the engineer specifically, how do I remediate it? What process is that? And they said you remediate it by turning it off. So again, I'm not saying take my word for it, and I'm fine that there's more time for you to do your due diligence, because I want it to be done correctly as well. I mean, there's no point in me buying a property that's a toxic or a tainted property, because then I can't do anything with it. I can't get a loan, I can't sell it. So, I want to make sure the process is done correctly, and if I've missed a step, it's great to have, this process, because then you can make sure that that's the case as well. But that's my understanding, is the professionals, the DEQ, the engineers are telling me that's what you do. You tap it off and it's going to clean itself the way that Mother Nature does it. It's not they use that exact example. They just said it's not a toxin, it's not an oil, it's not like you have a oil shop that you've been doing business on and you dumped a tank of oil in the ground and it has to be cleaned out.
Sure.
So I was like, okay.
And sorry. The county sheriff's office advised me that since the end of February, there's been 8 police calls within the park, and those calls are wide ranging of the type of service being requested within the park. But the number has gone down when you take 4 months here and the past 4 months before you took over. So it is decreasing, but even individually, I've had to respond out there for some pretty moderate things happening, right? And so it worries me, right? It just, like we've talked to you before. And I guess finally with the C4 zoning, we're as a city, or Brock, or staff is worried about the frontage, right? And what we can do with that frontage. Is in a C4, can we do an emergency services substation on the front of a C4 property there?
I believe I would have to look at our use chart. If so, it would definitely need a CUP, conditional use permit. That's what I'm thinking. But to add, that C4 district is a benefit to the city because the mobile home park use is not outright permitted there. Meaning that any expansion whatsoever that he does there would have to go through this body again. So it greatly incentivizes him to choose other housing products, such as apartments, duplexes, what have you, because those are outright permitted or a lot easier to definitely get permission for.
Thank you, Mayor. I've asked my questions.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Stokes?
Thank you, Mr. Black. I think we're all open to the ideas that you're bringing to the table. I think what I would like to see is a solid concrete plan from the DEQ, approved, signed, and you've taken a few steps towards accomplishing that plan, and I think that's where we go from here.
So Councilman, and not speaking for any of you, but I'm thinking what we want to do is approve the C4 designation, but then do a working group. Is that what I'm hearing?
Based on
With Mr. Black and his.
what were you saying?
No, so the whole thing's so you're gonna adopt two ordinances, one annexing the property and one zoning the property. You can't zone the property until you annex it. So you can't do either of those two things. The way I understand it, the recommendation is contingent that you're not gonna annex it until you have the annexation agreement that's coupled with the annexation ordinance. And then the zoning designation is just kind of a formality at that point, because it's already been recommended. You've already held whatever public hearings that you need. So you're going to, the work ahead is to come up with an acceptable annexation agreement that is married to the annexation ordinance and attached thereto as exhibit, probably B.
So I guess the question to Councilman is, when would you like to get with Mr. Black and sit down and, or I guess, Mr. Black, when you have time to sit down with this body and do a working group?
At your soonest convenience, I'm happy to, yeah, whatever I can do to assist, I'm happy to do.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Bundy?
Just a thought.
Zoom?
Could could Brock and wasn't that Mr. Black, right? Get together and come up.
Don't forget Rich.
And Mr. Yukiti with potentially city attorney, come together with an initial plan that we can look at and then go from there. I know Mike is pretty familiar with a lot of these, but we're going to need something to start with, and then for us to be able to do our research and our due diligence.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
So that means, so I don't,
you want to take that?
Yeah, I worked with Mr. Black when I was in the building department, so that's not a problem
So,
whatsoever.
Councilman Bundy, what I'm hearing is, Rich, Brock, city attorney, Councilman McCain, sit down, get us a draft so you guys can look at it, see what you like, what you don't like.
yeah, and that's going to take some amount of time. I mean, like weeks.
Well, it's gonna take a little bit because
Yeah, it's going to take.
everybody's thinking that, okay, you just cover these sewer lagoons in and then you're ready to build over. Mother Nature takes time to get rid of everything that's in that soil to where you can't just cover them over and build on them tomorrow. There's gonna be a time frame in there that I'm sure DEQ is gonna say, you can't do anything with this for X number of days or months or years till it has time to start working its way back in the system again.
The other thing I've learned from experience in a number of other cities is when you bring in a non-conforming use, so you bring in a mobile home park that does not meet the zoning that you're zoning for it, you need to have some part of the annexation agreement that identifies how that non-conforming use is going to be eventually brought into conformity. And I also recommend that you specify, as he's already done in his application documents, the number of units that are there. I'm dealing with these all over the place, and anyway, so you have maybe a specific timeline, or as they are replaced or removed, they're not replaced or they're converted. And then back to the earlier question Councilman Brennan had, public buildings or uses, which seems a little broad, are permitted use in C4. However, jails and detention facilities are conditional use.
We call them a substation, right, Councilman Brennan?
No,
Right. Fire and police,
Fire and police.
So,
medics.
that's all.
All right, do I have to make a motion, or does, not me, sorry, does the council need to make a motion to do this working group, or can we have those?
You can direct staff to start the initial planning to draft that up.
Okay.
And then put this back on the agenda to review the draft agreement. And that would get you closer to either finalizing it or being 2 weeks away or whatever.
Okay. We copacetic, good?
Okay, so then this is just
Tabled.
tabled until a further date then.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay,
all right.
Mr. Mayor,
sir.
would it be okay if I was to produce a memorandum saying this is where the city is at, so I can provide that to Mr. Black, so that he can distribute that to the DEQ and whoever else he needs to distribute to prove to them that this is moving, that it is not
We're talking.
stagnant.
Yeah. See any?
I don't see any reason why.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Anything else,
Thank you.
Black? All righty, Councilman, you got anything?
Mayor, one thing.
Yes, sir.
Well, Brock's at the table and the city attorney. I was hoping you could just kind of brief me, the rest of the council, about the concerns of the citizens today with, I forget the words that they used, why they can't have or a mother-in-law quarter.
Our mother-in-law quarter. So right now, a accessory dwelling unit is the official term that other cities use. Is a dwelling unit that is on the same lot as a primary dwelling. And they can come in a bunch of different forms. They can be above garages, they can be their own independent building, they can be attached. There's a bunch of different ways that you can do it. Right now, our city code does not allow for it. I don't think it's a terrible idea, but there's some trepidation because every good thing kind of has a bad thing with it too. Some people are fearful that when you do that, that the short-term rentals, such as doing a Airbnb, as the kids use, of that being frequented and that kind of tainting the neighborhood of character there. But there are different ways to definitely go about it. I believe the two individuals that presented to you, they're probably going to go speak to the Planning and Zoning Commission as well. It is a zoning title amendment. It is a substantial amount of work. So I informed them that it would be good to gauge your consideration about that before staff continues to assist them, just because it's a lot of work and we're very busy. It's something that we do want to do, but if it's something that this body is not interested in whatsoever, I didn't want to waste my or also your time.
Mayor, follow up to the attorney. Can the city do like one-on-one exceptions and do like they pull the neighborhood or something, the surrounding houses, and say, "Are you okay with your neighbor doing this?" I don't know.
So, there's a couple of issues there. What one-on-one? It's really fact dependent. So I was interested to hear the first person regarding the parcel that she possesses that has a number of platted lots. So I was in almost identically the same situation with the property that I have, except I had the equivalent of 8 platted lots. And so I split it into 2, but I was in precisely the same situation, so I severed half of my property, created another residential property, had to purchase another water hookup, and connected to city services. But I had the adequate square footage for the building that was sitting there. But the request for waiving area coverage limitations may, that may be something you may be interested in entertaining. Maybe in certain zones and not in other zones. That's a policy decision on your part. Waiving them or doing a poll of the neighbors isn't acceptable due process.
Okay.
So people should know what their expectations are, or what their requirements are, their limitations are. But those policy considerations are something you probably ought to consider in terms of just this blanket prohibition. The other consideration too is in a subdivision, any platted subdivision, old ones, new ones, you agreed as a governing body, or a governing body well prior to you agreed that there would be this many dwelling units in that subdivision, and you have sufficient police, fire, and street resources to handle that number of dwelling units. If you allow second accessory dwelling units, you can effectively double your population in a certain subdivision. And so that's the balancing that has to occur. That's purely up to you.
Well, how many feet short was she? Oh, sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
I just want to add a comment here. We do actually have a mother-in-law cottage ordinance that is tied into this. However, it was written in a way that you could not use it as a rental or anything else to gain money after really a mother or a father died or whatever, because you could not have 220 in it for cooking purposes It could not, let's see, there was one other thing. Could not have a kitchen in it. That way, somebody could stay in it, sleep in it, have their privacy in it. However, they could not stay in it, live in it because they couldn't cook in it. That there has been so many of those around that they basically, I think at one time had that. However, they turned into rentals after the parents were gone or the property was sold or however. Now it's not something that was meant for a mother-in-law. If somebody bought it with 2 properties on it, that they could rent both properties out.
How many feet was Beth short?
That is something that should
12
be able
feet
to
or
be talked
something?
Very little, yeah.
Yeah.
98.
So something like that, I mean, 98 feet? So to me, something like that should be an acceptable.
So if we wanted to make a change without just blanketing these accessory dwelling units, I believe she is zoned R4. We could make the 5,000 square foot standard less. Or is it 4,000 now? I think it's still 5,000. But we could
5,000, I believe.
Yeah, I thought it was 30.
I thought you went down to 30. I don't know. It's
for
been
the
a while.
R4. No, it's
I thought it was 3,000.
It was 5,000.
Well, I'm sure it's written down somewhere.
So, yeah.
potentially.
So will you see tomorrow and then reach out to her and maybe she's fine? So, okay.
It may not fit the complete definition of a variance. However, I'd much rather look at something like that than making a new ordinance for, okay, you can build one in this area, but you can't build one in this area. That's just not good.
Okay. Councilman, you got anything else? Okay. Meeting adjourned.